We have an answer to Mark 10:5 in the form of a commentary of Matthew 19:8. Vincent Word Studies. He saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. Okay. Just want to highlight, put away your wives. Okay. Because of he's kind of shorthanding this, so the AV is commonly understood to mean it was not so in the beginning, but that's not Christ's meaning. The verb is in the perfect tense, denoting the continuance of a past action or its results down to the present. He means, notwithstanding Moses' permission, the case has not been so from the beginning until now. The original ordinance has never been abrogated nor superseded, but continues in force. We jump down to verse 10 once again. We were kind of discussing this earlier in the series. His disciples say unto him, if the case of the man be so with his wife, it is not good to marry. The case, not the relation of a man to his wife, nor the circumstances, the case, the state of the case. Atia, I believe is how it's saying. I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'm not good with my Greek yet. Reading my Greek letters, that looks like Atia, but that might not be it. Refers to cause, Matthew 19:3. And the meaning is, if the matter stands thus with reference to the cause which the man must have for putting away his wife. So again, it's just not. It's if you're just going to be the type of person that puts away your wife for no fucking reason, and there is a woman's like this, you shouldn't even marry her in the first place, right? And discussing Matthew 19:11 through 13, or lower 11 through 12. I read briefly this PDF Hebraic analysis of Matthew 19:1 through 12, divorce discussing by Reverend Dr. Michael H. Koplitz. It's worth a read. It's only 32 pages long, and the first 4 pages are like nothing. They're just like the cover. And that paper made me think about these verses a little bit harder, so we're going back to them because it's not mentioned in Mark, though verse 9 is kind of mentioned. You know what I mean? Committing adultery if you are divorcing somebody for any reason. Um, and specifically, I'm looking at this text here. Now I tell you that anyone divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another commits adultery, right? So basically he's saying anyone that's divorcing his wife in order to marry another woman commits adultery. So this is something that Herod was doing, as we saw in the commentary. Herod was divorcing and divorcing to marry another one, and divorcing to marry another one, and then divorcing to marry another one. That isn't allowed. Polygamy is allowed. You're allowed to marry multiple women, but you're not allowed to divorce a woman, stop providing her all these things that she has a right to just to give it to another woman. That's literally unfair. You're not supposed to be breaking a covenant. A covenant is meant to be forever. Though it is in the hands of the man to dismiss the woman if there's some kind of sexual immorality or fornication or indecent habit manner. While the Pharisees say you could do it for whatever reason, Shammai, a strict interpreter of the law, is like, no, only for indecent things, which is implying a sexual connotation. When we look at uncleanness or nakedness in the rest of the law, we see a tying of sexual immorality. In fact, as again, as if you go to Leviticus and look through all the sexual statutes, you will see all the statutes on sexual immorality. That is, you will see a tying of nakedness or uncovering nakedness. Okay, so if she has this habit of doing something wrong, you know what I mean, then you're allowed to let her go. You're not. You don't have to stay with a whore. God divorced Israel for being an adulterous whore. Okay, so going on to 11 and 12. Not everyone can accept this word, but only those who can. It has been given. Right? We already covered this, but that made me think. I'm sitting here thinking, only who has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born this way, others who are made that way by men, and oops, and still others like eunuchs for the sake that live like. Also, others live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The one who cannot accept it, this should. The one who can accept this should accept it. When we discuss the idea of eunuchs, right? Is God telling people to be eunuchs for him, to live like a eunuch, despite the law and God himself saying, calling us to be fruitful and multiply? God doesn't contradict himself. Jesus doesn't contradict God. Since Jesus is God, God doesn't contradict himself. And so we have to look at what he's saying and what he's trying to mean. Okay? And as Victor Vincent's word studies were saying, this is referring to like the case between a man. If it's like that, then it better not to be better not to marry. And so, like, what? Not everyone accept this word. What word? That divorcing, not divorcing every woman is not a right thing. Like, it's pretty obvious. But only those to whom it was given. Okay, well, only those who was given. For there are eunuchs who are born that way, others that are made that way by men, and still others live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The one who can accept this should accept it. So, there are people who are eunuchs, very rare, and people who need to live celibate. That's also very rare. These are just exceptional things, right? Just as, oops, just as except for sexual morality is an exceptional clause, and it is, obviously a rare case, so that people should be committing adultery, because the punishment for adultery is stoning to death. Um, and for and pretty much any of these sexual immorality, if you do incest or bestiality, the punishment is severe. Um, so could we be discussing, when he's talking about for the sake of the kingdom of heaven, the one who can accept this should accept it? If we're discussing marriage as the bride of Jesus, Yeshua or Yahshua, then there's so many allegories or so many metaphors going on at once, it becomes confusing. Like, what is he talking about? Is he saying, like, don't get married, like you should? No, he's just saying, in the case of this, it would be better not to marry, and that some people have to live that way, like himself, you know what I mean, for the kingdom. Does that mean everybody should? No. You're called to be fruitful and multiply. You're imagers of the image. You need to go image God's image. So that brings us back to this conversation. If the case is going to be that the woman is going to act a certain way, and women generally act a certain way with indecent, uncouth, sexual, immoral habits, it would be better not to marry them. What's fucking difficult to understand about this? Jesus is saying literally it'd be better to be a fucking eunuch than to marry these fucking sexually immoral women. Okay? I don't know why, like, it's always, hold on. It's always these guys. It's always these guys with tiny necks. And sure, you wear these nice suits that make your shoulders look big. But you know what? In reality, this guy is a fucking weak-wristed, pencil-necked, fucking wearing a suit. What the fuck are you doing? Cuck, neocon asshole. And, like, he's talking down to Pearl here. Let's hear it again at the end here.
If he's raising a kid that's not his, you would support them staying together.
I oppose divorce in all
wow.
circumstances.
Wow.
That's a conservative view, not a liberal.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm liberal in that one.
Yeah.
So,
no, I think you're liberal in a lot of ways, and I think the red pill is liberal in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
which is the
I think you're liberal in a lot of ways. This is a conservative view. No, this is not a conservative view. This is not even a Pharisaical or a Shammai or a Jesus or a, this is just your fucking Catholic Church view that no divorce for any. We're gonna ignore fucking Matthew giving the exceptional clause. We're going to ignore the law, Deuteronomy 1:24 through 1 through 4. We're going to ignore that God fucking literally divorced, gives a certificate of divorce in Jeremiah 3:8 through 10. And we're going to say, oh, no, we don't do divorce. Even though God did it himself. God himself. So while we have this guy with weak wrists and a tiny neck, okay? Oh, I'm glad that you wear a nice little watch and you have this nice suit that pumps up your shoulders. Go to the fucking gym, okay? And maybe you would have some testosterone in your fucking balls, not to say some fucking faggoty, effeminate. Oh, if my son had, if your son had the child of another man in his wife's womb, you'd be like, raise that. You go, king. That's your queen. Raise someone else's child. What the fuck are you talking about? That isn't biblical. That is cuckish. That isn't justice. That's cuckish. That's cuctus. I don't know what to fucking call it, but it's not justice. It's causing this man to do something that is beyond reasonable in any sense of any understanding of the Bible. And he's saying it to be, I think this is all just a polemic tactic to shit on fucking Pearl, as he does at the end of the clip when he's talking about, oh, I actually think a lot of I think the red pill's liberal. The red pill isn't liberal. The red pill is looking in actuality and realizing, oh wow, the way that shit is fucking garbage. Okay, Satan, I'm fucking tired of fucking the church pushing the craziest forms of feminism that is not even a mainstream feminist view. Oh yeah, if your wife has another child of another man, you should fucking keep that child. Even feminists who are mainstream would come and be like, that's gross. What are you, a cuck? What are you doing? Why is it then that this person can present this argument or even this doctrine as biblical and mainstream and fucking good for people? He's literally saying, hey, you know that woman that cheated on you and been making you raise another fucking person's kid for 5 years? You should stay with that person. What in the fuck are you talking about? No. And guess who it's not up to fucking take care of either? The community. She's not a widow. Even widows are not allowed to join the widow registry until the age of 60. So, unless he's divorcing her just in order to marry another woman, all right, which is not the case. He can marry another woman right now. The problem is she's making him raise another person's fucking child, and she cheated on him. Obviously, that doesn't happen because she has an immaculate conception from ghosts. which also don't exist. Ghosts are fucking demons. Why would you then say that, Michael Knowles? It's the most ridiculous. It takes 1 second. It takes like 3 minutes to lie. It takes 3 minutes to fucking misrepresent the Bible. And it will take 3 hours to correct it. Last thing, we didn't touch on 1 Corinthians, right? Because he's like, oh, that doesn't say that. Here we are in Corinthians 7. I just want to highlight some verses as we go down. Verse 8. Now, as to the unmarried widows, I say this, it is good for them to remain unmarried, as I am. But if they cannot control themselves, let them marry. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. So, for once again, the eunuchs, people who are called and blah, 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 very few. I don't know who is completely devoid of not wanting to have sex. And that's very, very few people. Asexual, this, that, the other. Even those people say that sometimes they want to have sex. So even them. So this is, we're getting to a place where we're like, what? Wait, oh, so now the Bible's contradicting itself? No. Jesus is saying something different in Matthew 19. He's not saying don't get married. Marry is not good. They're talking about that specific case. Okay. As we go down, we just finished from 8 and 9. We're now in verse 10 of chapter 7, 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Verse 10, to the married, I give this a command, not I, but the Lord. A wife must not separate from her husband, but if she does, she must remain unmarried or else be reconciled to her husband, and a husband must not divorce his wife. Oops. To the rest I say this, I, not the Lord. If a brother has an unbelieving wife and she is willing to live with him, he must not divorce her. And if a woman has an unbelieving husband, he is willing to live with her, she must not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified through his believing wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified through her unbelieving husband. Otherwise, your children would be unclean, but now they are holy. But if the unbeliever leaves, let him go. The believing brother or sister is not bound in such case. God has called you to live in peace. How do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband? How do you know, husband, whether you will save your wife? Okay? This is talking about unbelieving. This isn't talking about a cheating whore who's had the children of other men. God literally divorces Israel for cheating, not even having the children of the other gods, and they're sacrificing their children of these. So, guys, what Paul is saying here in Corinthians 7 is he's discussing that. Oh, here we go. Back to 8. Is it starting to rain right now? Yes, it is. Now, let's go see what this word means. Divorce. Is it apostasion? Is it put away? Apolie? Whatever? Apuo? Let's go find out. Clicking on the verse. Closing the ad. Going to the Greek and see what we have. Must not... Okay. Well, now we have a new word that we haven't had used at all. This is Strong's 863, to send forth in various applications. It's a strange way to say divorce. Why not just say divorce? Oops. Okay, so we go to the word, and we're going to go to the summary. To send away, to leave alone. Send away, leave alone, permit. I send away, let go, release, permit, to depart, forgive, permit, suffer. None of it has to do with divorce. Properly, send away, release. Okay. of all the times that has been translated in NSAB, only twice are in divorce. Who wants to bet that one of those 2 times is 1 Corinthians 7? That's interesting. Now we go to Brown's. Oh, this is Thayer's. Okay. Augment. All right. Okay. Send away. To bid to go away or depart. Oops, I guess I didn't get that. This is highlighting from 1 Corinthians 7. A husband of putting away his wife. Notice what's missing. The certificate, the cert. The cert is missing. Why? Because once again, we're talking about you're not allowed to just put away your wife. This is what he's telling the Corinthians. Obviously, people will validate their own bullshit, and that includes putting away their wives without even divorcing them. We come back to the parallel versions of verse 11. We have is not to send away his wife, put away his wife. NSAB. Oh, look, I was right. The NSAB, it's divorce. Only one of 2 times where it's translated as divorce. 1 of 2. The other times it's something completely different. Why did they decide that? Because people make mistakes. American Standard Version, once again, not leave his wife. Contemporary should not leave his wife. Look, contemporary English is catching on. Aramaic, let not a man not forsake his wife. Dewey Rames, put his wife away. Leave his wife is what the English Revised Version. Good news, must not divorce. International Standard, abandon. Okay, literal, send away. New Heart, that the husband not leave his wife. Webster, put away. Dictionary man himself. Weymouth, send away. And Young's literal, and let a husband not send away his wife. This is I'm just trying to show you that not everyone is translating it as divorce. So I'm not making the first person to make this understanding. I'm not the first person to understand this. You can look in the commentaries. I'm not the first person to know these things. He's obviously, and in fact, this entire chapter is about getting married. Like, because there's so much sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband. So he is definitely encouraging marriage. So whatever he's saying here is not saying, "Oh, don't get married." And whatever he is saying here isn't talking about divorce. It's talking about sending away. Boop, 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 boop. Send them away. Not actually divorcing that, because once again, they cannot speak against the law of God. That would make them false prophets. That would make Paul an antinomian false prophet. As Paul puts it himself in this chapter, circumcision and uncircumcision is nothing. Keeping God's commandments is what counts. So what can we say about this pencil-necked, thin-wristed, weak-wristed, rat bastard Michael Knowles? Well, that he has no grasp of what's going on among normal people in the normal world, and how not even the quality of women has definitely fallen, the number of believers has definitely fallen, and now you're trying to pick a needle in a haystack. Yes, people should get married, not under the government. Yes, people should honor the values of the Bible, not be cucks and accept anything. But he stands there with that smarmy, smug look on his face, and he's like, "Oh, see, I've got you." You're like, "What did you get?" You just told people to have cuck children. I don't understand. Like, this is literally cuckeditianity. This is literally cuckeditianity. Christianity cucked. You are fucking. You cannot make this shit up. This is literally what they're saying. Men have no dominion in their lives. They're just meant to be fucking used up slaves. Because if you allow that type of shit and you enable it and you encourage people to keep and subsidize those fucking mistakes instead of people being accountable for their fucking sins and the things they do wrong, they will never change. And in fact, things will get worse as they have, as this doctrine has slowly propagated itself since maybe the John Paul Second Vatican. Divorce wasn't always this fucking ridiculous, and sometimes it was way too allowed too. There's been portions in Catholic history that have been way too lax. Okay, um, uh, that doesn't matter. What matters is what the Word of God says and what God Himself said, what God Himself did. They're not reconciling a God that divorced Israel, who allowed divorce because of sexually immoral women, and reconciling what the people are actually asking, which is, can I divorce for any fucking reason? And then not taking into account, oh, time to drink water again today, taking into account what other people are trying to impose on the scripture with their, oh well, I can be a serial monogamous. Look, I'm Herod Antipas. I can go from woman to woman and take whatever woman I like. Um, and I think the one before him, the Herodian before him, was a polygamist, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and that's allowed. It's allowed by the law. What's not allowed is serial monogamy, which is what a lot of people are doing today. Which is what people are doing in the Bible. Is, oh, I fell out of love. How many times do you hear a woman say, "Oh, I fell out of love"? But is that a significant reason to get married? Is that a significant reason to get married in the church, guys? No, it's not. That's completely unbiblical. Yet what do we have here? We have a fucking weak-wristed, no blinking Michael Knowles talking about how, oops, talking about how we have to accept our children being cheated on. Like, what are you fucking talking about? This is the most insane shit I could possibly think about. This is, can't write this. I can't make this up. They're literally Cuckeditianity. They're literally doing it to themselves. They can't even read the Bible right. They can't even accept what is right. They can't reconcile. They've sniffed their own farts for so long that all they can smell is their own farts, and they say how good their farts smell and tell everyone, hey, my farts smell good. You should smell them and like them. And then when people are like, oh, I don't like them. Oh man, you fucking heretic, fucking Protestant, fucking, pissing on Christ, church denier, the bride, the true bride of the church, the Roman Catholic Church, and this guy is fucking talking about fucking staying married to an adulterous woman who has making you raise another person's child. No. In what way is that respecting your husband? In what way is that in line with the Bible? It boggles my mind that we're here. And now I have another video that's going to be the next response, which is also only like couple minutes long, but it won't be as long because I've done this entire series, discussing how another person is like, oh, Pearl just wants women to stay single. No, no. Most women are not fucking ready for marriage. And Michael Knowles won't acknowledge it. He's like, oh, everybody should we should just get married. We should just fucking get married and work hard and then everything will be okay. What fucking retardation? Let's see what he says here. In fact, I think this is the part where he says it. God, my phone.
Way for the vast majority of the history of the church, and certainly, and still is the case in the Catholic Church and elsewhere. I guess one
Can't
way to
even give
understand
other
that, and that
Christians
apparent contradiction with the other synoptic gospels, which do not have the so-called acceptive clause, is to remember that St. Matthew is writing for a Jewish audience, and there was a live debate at the time over the exception, what type of adulterous exception that would imply. And so
What type of adulterous? It's fornication. Fornication is not only adultery. And let's see what he says.
Of understanding Matthew chapter 19 and the acceptive clause is to say, actually what he's saying is, let's ignore this whole sort of debate that's taking place between.
Let's ignore this whole debate by answering it fucking directly.
Various Jewish groups, and just get to the heart of the matter.
Get to the heart of the matter by answering it.
But further,
by quoting the law, as he does every time he's asked about the law, because he knows it perfectly, because he's the law, aka the Word made flesh.
Or the fact that you see in the other Gospels, not repeated with the acceptive clause, would seem to bolster the traditional view of the church, understood in the magisterium.
So because the other ones don't have that witness, and, you know, he's just quoting the Torah, which is its own witness, and the law is the law, we can just ignore it. So if certain, so all the passages that don't correspond with other passages in the other synoptic gospels or the other gospels in general, you know, just all of them, we can just ignore them. We can just ignore them. We can just take them out, right? So all the other ones, so we only have, that's getting fucking crazy. You're not trusting the witness that was there, and now you're separating this one fucking, not even this verse, just a couple words in the verse. And so then instead of appealing to the word of God and the eyewitnesses, I can appeal to the church that has been growing and manifesting itself for hundreds of years, and no way they could be wrong like the Pharisees. It's not like they actually literally take Pharisaical laws and practices and literally reproduce them in the Catholic Church. Oh wait, that's exactly what they do. You know, I suggest people go and read Ken Johnson's Gnostic Origins of Catholicism. Blew my pants off as a former Catholic. Go read Dr. Taylor Marshall's, who is a Catholic, who's an ongoing Catholic. His book, what's the name of his book? Infiltration. Great book. It lets you know that there's been infiltration for a long time, and it started a long time before where he's putting it, but that's fine. At least he's making some fucking connections. And, you know, there's people that, all, you know, they're, like I said in the other videos, is not a monolithic movement. They're like, oh, there's some Catholics that reject Vatican II, and I only do the Latin Rite, and then there's people that are like, oh no, this is, you know, divorce is okay within if there's sexual adultery, and this, obviously Jesus said that, and there's other parts of the church that allow the priest to marry, as opposed to other parts of the church which don't allow them at all. So then he's making an appeal that isn't true to something that isn't written, and instead is an appeal to an authority that he appeals to, but I don't accept, and pretty much neither do anyone that's not a Catholic. That includes the Protestants, but not limited to. And I would say that this is a very fucking ridiculous conclusion in order to then justify what he's about to say.
To positive faith, and articulated by the Vicar of Christ on earth, that no, you don't get to divorce just because you cheat on your wife. Also because
you cheat on your wife, or because your wife cheated on you. That's literally adultery. This is the problem of fucking ignorance. Oh, just because you cheat on your wife, you're not. Why would you divorce your wife if you cheated on her? She would divorce you. Is she even allowed to divorce? Well, no, not in that case if you cheat on your wife. But if your wife cheats on you, of course you're allowed to fucking... What the... men and women aren't the same, and he knows this, and somehow he's implying it in that fucking statement, that men and women are the same. If you cheat on your wife, you shouldn't divorce her. Well, and if your wife cheats on you, you shouldn't divorce her. The other, vice versa. It's fucking... There's no vice versa. There are rules for men, there's rules for women, and there's reasons why they're like that, because God said that.
That would create a perverse incentive, such that if two people don't like each other, there's an incentive to just go out and cheat.
So there's an incentive to cheat. What the fuck are you talking about? So the incentive now to force a man to, you're saying to force men now to divorce you is to go cheat, and now the church will allow divorce. What, do you understand how fucking ass backwards you have to be fucking thinking now to think that that's going to now allow divorce? Okay, so all the laws against adultery, promiscuity, sexual immorality, and so on and so forth. Those, I mean, we're gonna also throw those out the window, and we're going to cheat so that I can get out of this fucking marriage, which is a part of the. What are you talking about? You mean an unbeliever? Then let them fucking go. Right? That's what Paul says. But what are you talking about that this is going to incentivize fucking cheating? The Bible says stone a cheater. I don't understand how it's going to. Well, I mean, I suppose if you're a covenant theology or a dispensationalist or a person that doesn't believe that the laws of God are still in play, even though that they repeatedly show themselves to be in. I mean, Paul just says following the commandments. Jesus in Matthew says, "I'm not here to abolish the law. Don't follow the least of my commandments." Okay, because not a single jot will pass away until heaven and earth have passed away. It's over and over again, and somehow these large mainstream Christianity, quote unquote,
dissolve the marriage.
Okay, so if he's raising a kid that's not his, you would support them staying together.
I oppose divorce in all
wow.
circumstances.
because he's a retard.
Wow.
That's a conservative view, not a liberal view.
Yeah, I guess.
No, it's not a conservative view. It's a cucked view. It's a fucking view of cucks. It is not it's not aligning or reconciled with the reality. He is fucking putting forward bad doctrine, posing it as the fucking law of God when it's only the law of the Catholic Church, disagreeing with the law of God, disagreeing with fucking Matthew himself and his exceptional clause, dismissing it as a that we're not gonna we're going to bypass this fucking question when the literal verse answers the question directly. Blows my mind that this is. I mean, and I'm sorry that this series meandered on for so long, but now that we're here and we finally got here, and this is the conclusion. Thank you for watching. Stay up, stay vigilant, stay locked and loaded. See you in the next one. Shalom, shalom, peace in.